Hello, and welcome to the 2020 annual business meeting. We hope you have enjoyed so far the virtual convention. My name is Rosa Aronson, and I serve as Interim Executive Director of TESOL International Association. And I'm here with Deborah Short and Deborah Healy. Deborah Short is President of TESOL for 2021. And Deborah Healy is past president, and the presentation will begin with Deborah Healy.
Thank you, Rosa. I'm very happy to be here to talk to you at the very first virtual convention and the very first virtual annual business meeting and the very first ABM in July. So we have quite a few firsts this year, as I'm sure you're all aware of. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what happened in the past year, 2019-2020. I'll talk about what we had with global presence and connectivity, knowledge and expertise, voice and advocacy, and institutional sustainability, the four parts of our strategic plan. And then I'll also give a few remarks that I would have given at the regular ABM. First of all, on global presence and connectivity, we have nearly 12,000 TESOL members. We're very happy, 148 countries, which is excellent. And we had over 5,000 attendees at the 2019 TESOL convention in Atlanta. You can see some of them in this picture from the leadership briefing. In affiliates, we have 123 affiliates in all, with new affiliates coming in from Saskatchewan, Turkey, and Nevada. So the other thing I'd like to highlight in what affiliates did last year, in addition to the excellent work by the Affiliate Network Professional Council, we had a ELT for Puerto Rico Day. This was organized in part by the regional Caribbean region affiliates. And what they did was they gathered people across the world to do 10-minute presentations and raise money for relief for Puerto Rico. It was a wonderful thing to participate in. I'm sure a number of you probably either gave presentations or watched what we did in ELT for PR Day. So an overview of membership. I put 2014 in here because it was in Portland, my hometown, and I'm very proud that we did a great job of getting a lot of people who are members in 2014. But you can see it goes up and down. But 2019, we were doing well. We were doing better than we'd done since 2015. So I think that was a very good movement, very good progress that we've been making. And now to talk about what we've done for our members. In knowledge and expertise, we had more of the virtual seminars, more certificates, more courses, more participants. As you can see, we had over 2,000 virtual seminar registrants in 11 virtual seminars, 362 certificates in our 5 certificate programs, 196 self-study courses, and 99 countries represented in this, which I think is very good. It shows that what we are offering works for our members in many ways. We had a number of partner programs that we did with other groups. And as you can see, for example, the Global English Education China Assembly had 2,700 participants. And we had 800 at the TESOL Nepal English Language Teaching regional conference, which was for a new affiliate, Nepal. This was wonderful. They did a great job. We also had some new workshops related to the 6 Ps, the 6 principles for exemplary teaching of English learners and for exemplary training of trainers and for people using the books, as well as our standards workshop. If we look at what we did in publications, 12 new titles. Again, the 6 principles are doing a great job. 15,000 publication units sold overall. And in our journals, I'm very happy to see that TESOL Journal increased their downloads. This includes libraries that subscribe to TESOL Journal. And so it's significant that we're getting more of that. And of special interest to our researchers in the TESOL field, TESOL Quarterly increased its impact factor. It's now 6th among all linguistics journals. So something that the editors and the authors in our journals, and of course our book authors and editors, can be very proud of. If we look at voice and advocacy, we had 11 letters and alerts. Those of you who were at the recent Advocacy and Policy Summit know that we've had a lot of letters and alerts in the last few years. A number of joint policy statements. We've worked with 20 colleague organizations to try to make our voice heard within the United States and outside. The largest ever at the 2019 Advocacy and Policy Summit with 102 participants. And I'm really proud to say that our Advocacy Action Center launched in this past year. It allows TESOL members to go, and if they are in the United States, you can find your legislators. You can see what our legislative priorities are for TESOL. For example, the acts that support our English language learners in K-12, teachers in adult ed, etc. And you can, with the click of a button, create an email to send that you can modify or just send as is to your legislators. For people outside the United States, we've added a new link for you to tell us what your issues are. And we are hoping that we will be able to get a sense of how we can better serve our affiliates outside the United States and members outside the United States, as well as people within the United States with our advocacy. So the other thing that happened last year was we started the Diverse Voices Task Force. This was formed in August of 2019. It was sparked by an incident at the Atlanta conference. We started by saying we need to really do something about diversity, equity, and inclusion in TESOL. So we started with outreach to social responsibility intersection, Black English language professionals and friends, the LGBTQ and friends, the diversity collective, the general membership, to say, please join us in this effort. We had quite a few applicants, and we ended up with 10 key people who are different ethnicities, different races, different countries of origin, different first languages, different sexual orientations, different age, different religion. We have representatives of the Students with Disabilities intersection. So we really felt that we were making a good start in looking at what should equity and inclusion look like in TESOL. What does it look like and what should it look like? So we've asked the DVTF to come up with a definition, a vision, and some specific recommendations. Now, to the finances, our institutional stability. You can see that our finances have been, up and down. We had slight deficits in our operating expenses in 2017 and 2018, but 2019, a slight surplus. And the blue line, the line that you see going across the top, are our non-operating expenses, our long-term assets. So this is the stocks that we have, stocks and bonds that we hold to be our long-term assets. So we're doing, so we were doing okay financially. But so let's look at some of the positive elements from 2019 to 2020. More members from outside the United States. We went from over 70% US based to under 60% US based. So we're making great strides to expand our membership to reach out to different countries. A large number of those new members were from China. We approved the Membership Professional Council. They will be doing mentoring of new members, because something that Deborah Short, for example, promoted intensively last year was the need to bring new people into the association and feel like they belonged. And so that's part of the role of the Membership Professional Council. We had new publications, new professional learning courses, as mentioned before, the Advocacy Action Center, and the Diverse Voices Task Force. We are looking at the data from our pilot survey now, and there will be a full survey coming, in a few weeks probably. And we are hoping that if you get a link to this survey, that you will respond to it. We need to hear from everybody about what is TESOL. How are we inclusive? How do we need to improve? And this was something in my opening remarks at the last year's ABM. We had apologized for the incident in Atlanta. And what I said then was an apology is not enough. I mean, this is typical. You apologize, you move on. But what I said was the apology is not enough. And we are taking real steps to try to bring diverse voices and to make sure that we are inclusive of all of the diverse voices that we have within TESOL. And so I feel like we are moving forward. we're definitely not there yet, but we are moving forward in this area. So one more thing that happened at the end of my presidential year that you all know is that we canceled our Denver convention. So I'm going to move on for Deborah Short and Rosa Aronson to talk to you some more about what happened afterwards. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Deborah. Rosa and I will talk to you about the current conditions. And one thing that Deborah said to me when she passed the virtual gavel to me back at the beginning of April was that you don't get to pick your issues pick you in your presidential year. And she was really true, because I think what you would say is that the storm has hit, and I didn't anticipate it, nor did anyone else. We've had a difficult few months since March, and the COVID-19 pandemic has really had a negative impact on many of us. It's affected our lives and our schools, our programs, our students, our colleagues, our families, and ourselves. And so it's been a really challenging time. And as you might imagine, it has particularly hurt TESOL's finances. So between the pandemic, stopping some of the PD we might have offered or reducing some of the publication sales, we also confronted a large budget shortfall as a result of the cancellation of the Denver convention. And we had to rapidly think of other ways to work, and we'll tell you a little bit about those. What you see here is a portion of what Deborah shared earlier. You can see that in 2018, our net operating budget had a little bit of a loss. So we spent more than we took in. But by 2019, we had started to turn that around, and our net operating budget had a gain. When we planned our budget for 2020, we expected to grow that gain. We expected to have a very solid operating budget. But unfortunately, because of what happened with the pandemic and the cancellation, we are now projecting a net operating loss of about $1 million. And that's a really large number. So it means we have to think a little bit differently about how we're moving forward. Now, while that's a challenge, as Deborah was sharing with you earlier, we do have assets. And these are ones that we can draw on and that we can use for collateral. So what you see here, the blue line again, are the assets that we had, and you can see they went up from 2018 to 2019, but already because of the stock market losses, we have lost about $1 million in our assets too. Nonetheless, Rosa will share with you ways that we are making changes so that we can continue to operate and serve you as we have been.
Thank you, Deborah. So one of the things we did, if you recall the latest slide, you can see that our long-term reserves, so to speak, our savings, had dramatically been reduced because of the market fluctuation. And so as we were confronting the budget shortfall, we were reluctant to get into our savings because of the way the market was going. And so instead of going straight to the long-term reserves, we investigated things we could do. At that time, by the end of March, the US Congress had passed the CARES Act, which was meant to protect small businesses and associations like TESOL and help them maintain their staffing level so we wouldn't have to furlough staff. And through this channel, we were able to get a $350,000 grant, which really helped us maintain the staffing level. In addition, we applied and received a loan from the Small Business Administration through their Economic Disaster Initiative. And we obtained a loan of $150,000, which is the maximum anyone can get at this point. This is at a fixed rate of 2.75% over 30 years. So it's a pretty good interest rate. In addition to this, we also applied for a line of credit through our investment firm, the company that manages our savings, our long-term funds. And we obtained a loan that is equivalent to half of our long-term reserves. So we can borrow up to half of what we have, which fluctuates, but right now it could be $1.8 million. We are not going to rush to take this money out, but we know it's there for us to use if we need it and when we need it, which we probably will between now and the next fiscal year. That loan is at a 2.75% interest rate, but this one is variable month by month. So we have to keep an eye on it. Right now, there's no danger that it will go up because the markets are just so down, but we'll keep an eye on that. And so through these loans and through the grant, we were able to use the long-term reserve investment funds we had, not to just go into them, but to use them in a strategic way so that we could receive a line of credit. And hopefully the interest that we will receive on the investment will cover the interest rate we have for the loan.
Or do better than it.
Or do better. That would be wonderful.
Yes, yes.
We also took other measures. We had to look at all the expenses that were in the operating budget, and we really took measures to decrease those expenses. So the first expense we cut was marketing expenses. Not everything, but certainly that was a low-hanging fruit, so to speak. We also decreased some contractor fees, and we switched from using a contractor for selling our exhibit booths to a staff person who now manages the sales of exhibit booths for 2021. And finally, unfortunately, we did have to decrease some employee benefits, although we managed to keep that at a minimum. And as I said, we were able to keep our staffing levels. We also did take some initiatives to support you, members, and to increase revenue at the same time, because we knew that if we were suffering from a financial shortfall, we knew that life was also very different for all of you. And so we were thinking of ways that we could be there for you, support you. So we launched the My TESOL Lounge Live with a series of live events that were free and open to members and were actually led by leaders and members like you. And we want to really thank those of you who stepped up and led those events, because this was just a way to connect and support all of you. The other initiative we took was to go from face-to-face advocacy and policy summit to a virtual one. And actually, that was quite successful. We ended up with 309 participants at the 2020 Advocacy and Policy Summit last month, which is 3 times as large as the largest summit we've had. So we really were successful in pivoting to a virtual platform there. And the virtual platform also allowed us to open up the summit to international members and non-members. And of course, you are at the virtual convention. So although we had to cancel the face-to-face convention in Denver, we wanted to offer an event that was as robust for you in terms of content. And we are here, and we are so happy to see you there. We have over 2,000 participants at this virtual event, maybe more. Finally, 2 more things. We reorganized internally from a staff perspective. We combined 2 different departments, publishing and product development, and professional learning and research, and we formed one group called Content and Learning Group. And the reason why we did that was to really present a more coherent set of products and offerings from the association. And we hope that this Content and Learning Group is going to help us also diversify the sources of revenue, so that we are not only relying on events like convention for revenue. And finally, 2021, we are planning a face-to-face convention in Houston, but this convention will be a hybrid, meaning that it will be a mixed face-to-face and virtual convention. So we learned our lesson. We don't know what the situation will be like with COVID next year. So we will at least be ready to have a virtual platform. And if all goes as planned, then we will have a mix of face-to-face and virtual event.
Thank you, Rosa. What all of those initiatives show is that we are indeed TESOL strong. We missed the opportunity to meet up face-to-face in Denver, and we've had to deal with this time of a public health and financial crisis. But we've pulled together, and many of our communities of practice have really stepped up and helped out. So in our professional councils have been doing quite a bit of work. And I'd like to give a little shout out to the conference's professional council that really had to pivot very quickly from the convention they were planning to have in Denver to stopping all of that effort and turn around and think about, how do we plan a virtual convention? How do we get an appropriate platform? How do we identify the sessions and work through the recordings and so forth? And they've done a great job. This has really been a terrific event. We also have our board committees. Our nominating committee has been out there beating the bushes, hoping people would work with us here in elected leadership roles. And our finance committee really had to work very hard as we looked at rebudgeting the second half of this fiscal year. And in addition, as you all know, our intersections and our professional learning networks really ramped up their efforts to connect us virtually, globally, online. We couldn't be together, but they planned webinars, they started discussions on the My TESOL group, they organized different resources. They really showed that we are in many ways a family, and that when there was a time of crisis, we worked together to get through it. What I'd also like to do is acknowledge our affiliates, because they as well have been doing what they can to support our TESOL members around the world. They have shared information, whether it's how to support online learning or doing placement assessments when you can't bring students into a classroom to give them the test. They've worked on ways to move their conferences online. Some of them, like TESOL, have already held a virtual convention or conference online, and others are planning them for the fall. They've been hosting a wealth of different webinars, and really they've organized and posted resource collections so that as a group, the affiliates and TESOL and the TESOL community of practices have continued to advance English language teaching around the world, while we've also taken care of one another. And because we weren't together physically in Denver, we weren't able to give hugs and goodbyes to our outgoing board members. But I do want to acknowledge their 3 years of exemplary service. You all know Luciana de Oliveira, who was our past president, Leslie Barrett, one of our directors, and Lawrence Zhang, another one of our directors. We thank them for all that they did for us, and we really wish them the best. And similarly, we weren't able to physically welcome our new board members. So we want to acknowledge them here. Gabriela Klekova is our president-elect. Ayana Cooper and Okan Effiong are our new directors. What's been amazing is that they really had to jump in, roll up their sleeves, and start working really hard right from day one, because we had so much to do in March and early April. At this time, let me turn it back over to Rosa.
Thank you, Deborah. So this slide shows the board of directors, and I just wanted to emphasize how much work this board has done since March 2020. They have worked tirelessly on your behalf. We have had meetings every other week for quite a while, and now we're beginning to space out the meetings, but they understood the seriousness of the situation, and they were rolling their sleeves, and they were prepared to really help with the financial shortfall, but also help us look at the future of what the association can still do. And I want to give them a shout out because they've been absolutely wonderful. So I'm going to cite their name. First row, Joe McVeigh, Kathy Lobo, and of course our past president, Deborah Healy. Second row, Deborah Suarez, President Deborah Short, Crystal Brody, who serves as chair of the Finance Committee. And the third row, Gabby Klekova, President-elect, Justin Shewell. And then the last row down, Okon Effiong, Gracia Mendoza, also on the Finance Committee, and Ayana Cooper. Thank you so much to our board of directors. They really have stepped up and worked very, very hard. I would also like to thank the staff of TESOL. They have been working under difficult conditions like you since March, and I wanted to thank them individually for doing this. Rita Buckner, Judy Mason, Srisusha McCabe, Heidi Faust. On the second row, Jim Trope, Elizabeth Adler, Lisa Dyson, David Cutler, Valerie Novick. Third row, Myrna Jacobs, Kerry Dalton, Natalie Birch, Wynn Mason, Pat Harris, and last but not least, Nancy Flores, Rika Batulan, Tiffany Garcia, and Rod Brown. And like you, they've been working from home under difficult conditions, and they have worked steadfastly, and their commitment has been unwavering. And even when we had to cut their benefits, they understood, and I want to thank them for that. I also would be remiss if we didn't thank our major sponsors. Those are companies that have been with us sometimes for a long time, and particularly in this difficult year, we want to acknowledge their support. And those are just some of the major sponsors: National Geographic Learning, VIP Kid, 21st Century English Education Media, the American Federation of Teachers, the Center for Applied Linguistics, Cambridge University Press, the British Council, Pearson, Saddleback Educational Publishing, the International Language Testing Organization, Immersion, QKids, Microsoft. We also, although they are not technically sponsors, I wanted to thank the Department of State Bureau of Educational and Cultural Affairs. They have been wonderful partners over the years, and especially this year. So I want to acknowledge them. Last but not least, you see a name here on the left, Leslie Barrett. Leslie, as you know, is an outgoing board member. And in addition to giving her time to the association over the past 3 years, she left with an incredible financial donation and sponsorship to the virtual convention. And we would be remiss if we didn't thank Leslie for her significant contribution to this event.
Thank you, Rosa, for acknowledging our diligent and creative staff and our dedicated sponsors who have really been with us for a long time, as you mentioned. I want to conclude the ABM with a call to action. We all know how difficult and uncertain these times are, and we're unable to predict the future. But we are resilient, and we've shown that over the past few months. We're a TESOL family, and together we've been working to overcome the challenges, whether they're learning how to teach online or how to give placement tests when you can't bring students into a classroom. What I'd like you to know, on behalf of the board and the TESOL staff, that we are here and we are committed to working on your behalf. And we will continue to do all that we can to help you engage and collaborate with one another as you advance English language teaching around the world. But we do need some help. And so for that, I'd like to ask you to please renew your membership, to sign on and participate in some of our interest sections and some of our events. And if you are able, to please provide a donation to TESOL. We know that a number of you have already donated when we canceled the Denver Convention to our TESOL Resiliency and Recovery Fund. And we are very grateful because at that time it was very difficult for many of us. So we love that you've gone out of your way to support TESOL. And for those of you who are able to provide a donation now, we'd like to thank you in advance. And with that, we will now conclude the first ever virtual ABM in July during the first ever virtual convention. We thank you for being with us. We look forward to another exciting year with you and working for you. And right now, we would like to stay on and answer some questions that you might have.